Morning, guys. Out here this morning, I'm going to try and beat this thunderstorm that's supposed to be coming in. This is a request video. My friend from over in Sweden, Magnus Andersson, has requested that I do a comparison video between the Gerber LMF II and the Gerber Prodigy. I promised him I'd do it, so today's the day. We're going to take a look at these two knives. Along the way, I think we're going to try and address some issues that people might have with serrated knives, partially serrated knives. Quite honestly, prior to becoming acquainted with Magnus, I didn't really have much use for serrated knives. A few of my pocket knives had serrations, but that was about it. Full-size knives, I didn't really want to have much to do with them. I did have this LMF II, but I hadn't really used it a whole lot. Magnus's favorite knife is a Prodigy, and he loves the thing, and he uses it to fantastic effect in the woods. That kind of opened my eyes to what was possible with a serrated blade, out in the bush. So I opened my mind a little bit, took my Gerber out and gave it a shot, and lo and behold, the thing's a beast in the woods. It does all sorts of things that serrated knives aren't supposed to be able to do. So we'll take a look at some of that. Take a look at the serrations, what they're capable of, and try and dispel some of the myths that are out there regarding serrated blades and their usefulness in the wilderness. So, okay, let's take a look at the knives. Alright guys, let's take a look at these side by side. We'll go over some of the specs real quick. I'm not much into the whole tabletop review kind of thing. I'd much rather see these knives in action. But we'll take a quick look at them side by side. We'll go over some of the specifications, get that stuff out of the way. Alright, first we have the Prodigy. It's the smaller of the two, and the LMF. Both made by Gerber, both made here in the USA, in their plant in Portland, Oregon. Currently they are both made out of the same 420 high carbon steel. That's what this one is made of. This happens to be an older Prodigy. Before they switched to the 420 high carbon, they used the Swedish Sandvik 12C27, and that's what this is. But right now, if you were to go out and purchase them brand new, either one of them, I do believe you would be getting them in the 420 high carbon, which is a pretty good steel. I don't have any issues with it. The overall length on the LMF II is 10.59 inches. Blade length is 4.84 inches. As you can see, it's a drop point. Like I said, it's 420 high carbon, partially serrated. The weight of the blade without the sheath is 11.67 ounces, and with the sheath it is 24.28 ounces. When we take a look at this Prodigy, very similar styling, very similar construction. Overall length on the Prodigy is 9.75 inches. The blade length is 4.75 inches. The blade length on the LMF II is 4.84. Blade length on the Prodigy 4.75. Not a huge difference there. Here's where we're going to get into the huge difference, is the weight. Weight with the sheath for the Prodigy is 12.45 ounces. That is almost half of the 24.28 ounces of the LMF II. Weight without the sheath is 7.21 ounces. Weight of the LMF, like I said before, is 11.67. So a lot of the weight difference as set up from the factory is coming from your sheath setup. There's another difference here that's of notable interest, although I've not found it to be any practical interest. The Prodigy is a full tang blade. It's full tang. It is a solid piece of steel from the tip of the blade all the way back here to this little, I guess they call it a glass breaking pommel. The LMF II is not. LMF II comes back, I think, to right about here. And then it stops. And then it's got this pommel back here that's inset into the handle material. The LMF was designed to be a survival knife, an escape knife for air crews. They designed this so that they could use this to break through, I guess the plexiglass of their hatches, or their covers, or whatever they call them, cockpits, to be able to cut through electrical wiring. They wanted this handle insulated. If you're holding the knife, good chances are your hand's coming in contact with this pommel. And if you're cutting a live electrical wire, if you cut it, obviously you're cutting it with a blade, that electrical current, if this was full tang, would run all the way through and contact your hand through here. It could cause you some major problems. So they disconnected the two, and the theory is that you can now cut a live electrical wire without electrocuting yourself should you need to, because the rest of the grip is fully insulated. I personally don't foresee myself cutting live electrical wires, but hey, you never know. That's how it's designed. That's why it's designed that way. Take a look at some of the other obvious differences. If you look at these two knives side by side, like I said, there's not a huge difference in the blade length. However, there is a pretty big difference in the blade width. The LMF II is a good bit wider that way. Handle differences are substantial. The LMF II has a much stouter handle. It's much more hand filling. They're both made of the same type of material. It's some sort of a, I don't know, a rubberized coating. I don't really know what it is. It's got a tacky feel to it. Up here on the Prodigy, it is transitions into a more of a hard plastic. It doesn't have that tacky feeling. Whereas with the LMF, that tackiness transitions all the way up into the guard area. You don't have any of that hard plastic feel anywhere. The LMF has lashing holes, 2 here, 1 back here. So if you wanted to turn this into a spear, for defensive purposes, for hunting, for just trying to reach something up high that you can't get to, maybe cut down a piece of fruit, or who knows, would make this easier to lash to. The Prodigy just has single lashing point here in the pommel. Like I said, the grip on the LMF II is more substantial. It's more hand filling, it's thicker. And when I first got the Prodigy, I was a little concerned that it wasn't going to be big enough for when I was doing, prying work or anything like that, torquing down into a piece of wood, that this thing was going to torque around on my hand and cause hot spots. So far, that has not been the case. And actually, after working with this for a little bit, the LMF actually feels a little blocky to me, almost too big. But that's going to be a matter of personal preference. So this has the glass breaker on the end. The pommel here has 2 decent features. It's got the glass breaker tip on it, should you want that. Obviously it's got the lanyard hole. It's also got a flat spot here for hammering with. which I have not used yet, and we're going to use it today. We're going to try it out. I brought some nails with me. You're not going to use this like a hammer and, grab it, and although I guess you could, but you're not going to get too much torque on it. I would put this down whatever surface you're hammering on and use a baton. But in any case, you've got that there. This pommel adds a fair bit of the weight to this knife. I think that's where a good bit of the weight difference between these two comes in. So when you pick this up, balance point is right in here, and you feel that when you're working with it. It's not unwieldy by any stretch of the imagination. It's just balanced a little different. Pick this one up, it's a lot more blade heavy. See, the balance point is pretty much right there at the guard. This feels more nimble to me. You'll see the serrations with the same design. Serrate length of the serrations is about the same. And we'll get more into those serrations as we go along here. I don't know how much more I can say about the knives. I think that's about it. Let's take a look at the sheaths. These are the sheaths for both the knives. This is the sheath for the LMF II, the sheath for the Prodigy. Remember I said when we were going over the specifications, this is a lot heavier. And you can definitely feel that. Basic construction is the same. It's some sort of a plastic. Both of these are some sort of a plastic that are over molded with a grippy rubber type material. It kind of keeps them quiet, which is nice. They don't clack around like a hard plastic does. This part up here is plastic. I don't know if that picks up or not, but it's a fair bit quieter. So if you're going through brush, it's not gonna be as loud. Both are MOLLE compatible. The LMF sheath has a sharpener built into it. It's a carbide bit fixed angle sharpener. This is not going to get your knife razor sharp. However, for field work, it will do the job. It is effective. Don't like to use these because they tend to hog off a lot of metal all at once. But it's better than nothing. It's there. Obviously the Prodigy does not have that. It's not a built-in feature of this. So that lightens things up considerably. Not too much more to say about it. They're both friction fit, as well as they have dual redundant straps. So when you take your knife and you push it in, you get that audible snap. And this lip here locks your knife in place. So it's not going anywhere. You've also got the straps here. That snap in place. Same with the LMF. Not going to go through putting that back together. Put it in there, give it a good push, and it snaps in place. I will say that the LMF, the friction fit, is a lot tighter than the Prodigy. And I think that's because of this over-molded rubber that I told you about before. Whereas the Prodigy transitions into a hard plastic here, this is all that grippy rubber material. As you're pushing that down in there, there's a whole lot more resistance. So this thing is going nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. I could see where this might possibly loosen up over time. But even still, you know, like I said, you've got your two straps here to lock everything in place. They're good, high quality sheaths. The stitching is good. They're not sloppily built. I've worn these on my hip. I've strapped them to a pack. This one anymore lives strapped to some of the molly webbing on my Maxpedition pack that I pretty much take with me everywhere I go. So it's secure, it's strong, it's well made, it's a good sheath for what it is. That said, I do have a Kydex sheath coming for this one, for belt carry out and about in the woods, as this one does tend to be just a little bit cumbersome. This one also came with a strap. You can strap it to your leg. This one I got second hand, didn't have the strap with it, but if you buy them new, you'll get a strap. Okay, I don't know how much more I can say about it. You guys are probably tired of listening to me babble on, so let's get to cutting some stuff. Okay guys, I've got two pieces of oak here. It's pretty old, well seasoned. It's been sitting out here a long time. Pretty hard. They are both cut from the same log. Just cut them when I got out here today. Both about the same length, same diameter. So we're going to see if the LMF II and the Prodigy have any noticeable differences in batoning these two pieces of hard seasoned oak. I think we'll take this time to talk about one of the myths about knives with serrated blades. If you use them hard, you baton with them, the serrations are going to break. I've heard that over and over again. And I guarantee you there are knives out there with serrated blades that will live up to that promise. The serrations on these Gerbers are not that kind. These things are not breaking on you. They're very well made, they're very durable, which you're going to see here in just a minute. Let's start with the LMF II. Again, this is a good hard piece of seasoned oak. Got a little bit to work with, not a whole lot. You can see we're digging right down into the serrations. We're not sparing this thing anything. That wasn't even a challenge. Alright, see, we're getting into a knot here. It's good. You can see how the grain twists. That's going to be putting a lot of stress on the blade and on the serrations. Yeah, no problem. You can see this. Get a little closer here. Those serrations are completely unaffected. No issue whatsoever. Still good and sharp, still fully intact and functional. All right, let's try it with the Prodigy. The Prodigy has a little bit of a shorter blade, not by much, not by much at all. Alright, again, no problem. That one felt like it took a little bit more work than the LMF. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. Still wasn't a problem for it. No problem there. No problem there. Getting close so you can see. You can see that, again, serrations are completely unaffected, as is the edge. It's still sharper than hell. Oh, no problems. Alright, let's take a look at another thing that serrations aren't supposed to be able to do, which is fine work. One of the main things I like to use a knife for is making feather sticks, or making shavings so I can get a fire started. It was with this task that really opened my eyes to the ability of a serrated blade. Well, instead of describing it, we'll just show it to you. Those serrations, when you're working corners of wood like this, at least with the Gerber serrations, are wickedly efficient making feathers. Ridiculously efficient at it. Better, actually, well, I won't say better. It's almost more effective than my favorite woods blade, which is my Skookum bush tool. Now that thing is a better carver, hands down, no doubt about it. It feathers like crazy. You can baton with it. You can do all sorts of stuff with it. It's a fantastic knife. I love it. But it takes a little more control, a little more dexterity, and I got to tell you, in a survival situation, or you're just out, you're cold, you're tired, you've lost some dexterity in your hands, you might not have that extra dexterity needed to work that fine edge along this piece of wood and get those feathers up. This is, how should I say it, more of a brute force and ignorance kind of tool. That doesn't quite cover it, but you don't have to put as much thought, you don't have to use as much control or technique to get really fine shavings with this. That was the LMF. You can also get them very quickly. Obviously, when I'm rushing through here, they're not near as pretty. But still, can you use this for making a fire? Yeah, absolutely. Can you do notches with it? Yep. Again, this is a hard piece of oak. This isn't a softwood. Got some of that around, but I figured we'd try it on this. Notches. No problem. And that was with the serrations. You still have your plane edge up here, should you want to employ it. It's got lots of belly. It's pretty effective. Again, this takes a little more control, a little more technique. Whereas if you just get down in here into one of the half rounds with that serration, hold a rough angle and work it, that'll make all sorts of feathers. Alright, LMF, no problem. Guarantee you there's not going to be any issues using the Prodigy. Same thing. Work the corner of the wood. Look how fine that is. Same technique that you'd be using, you know, with a Mora or another Scandi type blade or whatever blade you choose. Very thin, very fine. If you want heavier, I just dig in. Again, you know, the big differences between these knives are going to be in the bigger tasks, the chopping, the splitting, stuff like that. This knife has no issues with this type of work. Again, you've got the plain edge. You can get very fine curls. Sit here and do this all day. So, chopping. Didn't really do a whole lot of chopping, did we? Should we chop something? Yeah, why not? Doing everything else. Might as well chop something. Get our oak log here. These aren't the best chopping knives I've ever seen. But hey, a pinch, let's see what we got. Let's chop down. Make sure we're getting those serrations involved. Alright, keep at this. This is the 420 high carbon. No issues with the blade, no broken serrations, still ridiculously sharp on this hard piece of oak. Problem. This will be interesting, because a lot of the extra weight with the LMF is in the handle, which shouldn't affect the chopping ability of it too terribly much. See how this lightweight Prodigy does. Now I can tell you right off the bat, the extra size and length of the handle of the LMF makes it superior for this. If we're going to do this, I do the batoning technique that we just used to make this notch. This is not this knife's forte. It'll do it. I'd want a lanyard down there. This thing feels like it's about to fly out of my hand. Yeah. This one has a definite edge if you're going to be chopping. Much more secure. I'd still want a lanyard on it, but that feels much better in the hand. Again, no issues with the edge at all. Serration, they're still in perfect shape. Alright, this one's going to be LMF specific. We've got a nail, we've got this flat surface in the pommel here. Let's try and drive that nail. Again, hitting it like this is not a good idea. I'm really not even sure how I'm going to hold this. There we go. If I do this for too long, I'm going to smash my knuckle, guaranteed. Because that's just the way I roll. But you can see, it actually works pretty well. You just got to use some care, not to smash yourself. Alright, last area that I want to test is the ability of these knives to strike a ferro rod. The LMF as delivered has the same edge on it that it's always had. Good sharp edge, fully capable of striking a ferro rod. The Prodigy, as it was delivered, had a little bit of rounding to the edges. Just wasn't quite sharp enough, so I actually took this to a machine shop, and in between jobs, it was like a 2-minute thing. They didn't even charge or anything for it. They just milled down the back of the spine. It's ridiculously sharp now. Like I said, this is an older Prodigy. I would hope that the new Prodigies come sharp just like these. But if not, you know, it's an easy fix. So this won't be quite a fair fight. This is factory. This edge is not. This is just a small bundle of inner bark from some of this oak that we've been thumping on. Let's take a look. Almost. Just a tad bit damp, so that might be affecting this staying lit. Try the Prodigy. Yeah, no problem getting it started. It's just this is just a little bit damp. Doesn't want to stay. Alright guys, now it's probably a good time for conclusion. I think I've run all the tests that I want to run. Splitting, no problem for either one of them. I felt this one split that oak log a little bit easier. I don't know if it was the increased width of the blade. You've got this increased surface here that's wedging that wood apart that made it go just a little bit easier. But for whatever reason, this felt like it took a little less effort. The Prodigy, still fully capable of splitting. It was a very close call between the two of them. Batoning, you know, it's so close on, it's really hard to say which one was better. But for bigger stuff, I'm going to call it for the LMF II. For carving tasks, you know, that's a draw. Either one of them will do the job just fine. You can get very fine curls, you can cut notches, you can do fine work up here with a plain edge. Either one of them is just fine. I don't see an advantage to either one. This might feel a little more nimble in hand just because it's lighter, but it's personal preference. Ergonomics, again, it's a really close call. If you're going to do chopping, which neither of these are very good at, this is the one to go with. That extra surface area on that handle, the extra length makes a difference for that, but they both pretty much stink at chopping. They're not all that wonderful. Striking a ferro rod, again, it was a little bit of an unfair fight. This one wins, but only because I had this milled down to a very sharp edge. It's really, really sharp. A testament to the steel. It shows no signs of dulling after all the fires that I've lit with it. This knife, as you saw, had a problem. The piece of plastic inside this overmolded rubber grip broke right here at the tip, right inside the guard. Not because of batoning the blade, but it was like an idiot. I came at it at the wrong angle, and I came down right across it like this, and I batoned my knuckle and this soft rubber overmolded guard, which in turn compressed and shattered the very tip of this plastic insert. I think I'm probably going to send this back to Gerber and see if they'll replace it, simply because it doesn't feel any less solid. There's no play, none of that. But there's a little gap here. I don't know if I can show it to you or not. I don't know if you can see that, but it feels like it's compromised a little bit, which is disappointing. I'd hope not to see that, but there you have it. I have a feeling that if I fill this up with JB weld, that it would be just fine. And I don't know, I may yet do that, but I don't know, we'll see. I'll let you know. I'm a little disappointed that that broke, but it's something that you need to know about. It is inherent to this design. You've got this piece of plastic running down in here that this rubber grip material is molded around. Plastic can break, and it did today. So it's something you need to be aware of with these knives. Would this knife continue to function for me out in the woods? Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think it's going anywhere, but you know, it is what it is. It happened, so you need to see it. This had no issues like that, because I wasn't stupid enough to smash the guard on my knuckle again. I was a little more careful. So what that tells me is, you know, that was a function of me popping the guard with a hard piece of wood, rather than torque in the handle from me smashing on the knife with a baton. That was a pretty abusive test. It's a very hard seasoned piece of oak going across the grain. In every other respect, both of these knives did fine. This one had absolutely no issues with it. Not something I recommend doing to your knives, but should you need to, you know, these things are billed as survival knives. So you need to know what the limitations are. LMF has added weight, added girth of the handle, a flat surface here for hammering, which was pretty effective. Again, you just have to be careful how you hold it so that you don't smash your fingers, but it is effective. So which of these two do I like best? I gotta tell you, I'm leaning toward this little Prodigy. I really like this thing. I really like it, and it's not going anywhere, unless it goes back to Gerber for replacement, if they'll replace it after what I did to it. But as a general woods knife, these things run about 40, 50 bucks. This thing's fantastic. You can't ask any more of a knife than what this thing will do. It's good quality stainless. Like I said, the new ones are 420 high carbon. That's what this one is, and I have no problems with it. Doesn't hold an edge as long as some of the tool steel knives that I have, but it's very easy to sharpen, takes a great edge, and holds it reasonably well. But this does everything that I want it to do, and the serrations are wickedly effective. Wickedly effective. You saw me baton with it, you saw me split wood with it, you saw me carve with it, and these things are just as sharp and as effective as when we first started. So I can't speak for all serrated blades. I guarantee you there's plenty out there that suck. These aren't them. These do not suck. These are very effective. So if you find yourself with an extra 40, 50 bucks laying around and you want to give one of these a try, especially if you need a stainless knife, if you're going to be out in the water, wet environment, and high carbon's just not cutting it for you, give these knives a look. Like I said, I like this one because of its weight. It's smaller, it feels more nimble, it does everything that this will do. A couple of tasks takes a little more work, but yeah, I'm really impressed with it. Really impressed with it. So, Magnus, I hope this this answers your questions. Brother, I say go out and get one anyway, just 'cause. But you've already got one of these. I don't see any reason to replace it. So there is your Prodigy and LMF II comparison. with a little talk about what is and what isn't possible with serrations and what they'll take. So, till next time, see you guys.